fan has three settings: off, low, and high. And you like to go to bed at night and have a fan blowing in your room, okay? In fact, you like to have different ambiance when you sleep. So sometimes you're like, well, I like just this fan on, sometimes like extra windy night or just a calm night. This way, you're wondering, well, how many different settings could I make to have different windy experience every night when I go to bed? Well, if we do this the way that we just talked about in the last question, you really have three choices that need to be made. You have the choice, how are you going to set fan number 1? How are you going to set fan number 2? And how are you going to set fan number 3? So sometimes you get a question that says, can you count all the ways that this can be done? And if you look at fan number 1, how many choices do you have? 3 choices. And fan number 2, and fan number 2, how many choices does it have? Well, it could be off, low, or high, 3 choices there. And fan number 3, 3 choices there. With, if you multiply those all together, 27 in total. Now, if you had to list all 27 of them, you know, it could be like, oh, off, 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 low, 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 off, low, high, high, low, off. It could be very complicated to list them all. So there's systematic ways that we can go about, if we did want to list them all, we could do something called a tree diagram. In probability or in counting, a tree diagram says, well, fan number 1 has 3 options. It could be off, low, or high. And then after you decided fan number 1, fan number 2 would have 3 options. Off, low, or high, off, low, or high, off, low, or high. And then I'm cheating, I know. Right? And then if you went along the branches, for example, this top branch would represent, ooh, a very nice evening of calmness because they're all off, right? A little bit more shocking might be this one. Oh, right, there we go. You're in for a funny night, maybe you choose this option. There we go. But we could go through and list them all as a result, right? So this tree diagram gives us a systematic way of seeing all 27 of them. But the tree diagram is not necessarily the fastest way to count them. Counting them, we could do with how many choices do you have to make, and how many decisions do you have to make? 3 decisions. Once fan 1, fan 2, and fan 3. And then how many choices for each one. And this concept of making a space for each decision that you need to make and putting the numbers in for the number of choices is called the fundamental counting principle. So you can highlight that in your notes. Go back to our notes here. So the fundamental counting principle, basically, right beside this, what do? We make a space for each decision And then we put the number of choices in each space. So in our lamp question, we had in our fan question, we had 3 decisions to make because we had 3 different fans. How am I going to set fan 1? How am I going to set fan 2? How am I going to set fan 3? And if you had these fans set up in your room in different places, you could almost go a whole month, 27 days, before you'd have to repeat one of the experiences. My brother cannot fall asleep without a fan. He started when he was little, having a fan. He has a fan that if he goes on holidays, he takes it with him. He doesn't actually need the wind, he just needs the noise. And he's like, still has to plug it in and have a fan going somewhere in his room.